Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night Reef Talk live stream, where today I have a new guest. I'm joined by Jonas from ABC Reagents. Jonas, how are you?
Alex, wonderful. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It is a pleasure. So there are many people will know you because you've done a couple of live streams with Jim Graham, Telegram.
Yes.
So people will have known you through that, and I know some people. I've spoken to some people who were aware of ABC Reagents, but for those who aren't, who are you and what are ABC Reagents?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, for those of you who have not followed our little path here over the last half year to 9 months, my name is Jonas Busser. I am a professional chemist by trade for the last 20 years at a large pharmaceutical company, and I'm a hobbyist who joined the hobby several years back. Bought a really cool automated testing system. It was testing my aquarium for alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium. And then I was, to say the least, unpleasantly surprised with the cost of the reagents, to the point where I was looking at them going, you got to be kidding me. And I started Google searching, and nobody really knew what these were made out of. Kind of a perfect storm hit in COVID year 2020. And I had a little bit of extra time. I had a little bit of extra money, and I started doing a little bit of research on my own here at home. And yeah, we figured out exactly how to make them, and I would even go as far as saying how to improve them. But yeah, so we're making reagents now for automated testing systems. I think a lot of you know which systems they're compatible for. We've got the U.S. market pretty well latched on at this point, but I have been getting a lot of attention from international customers and interest, to the point where it's really time for me to focus on the rest of the world. I had no idea the interest. I mean, this all started off with just, one small local fish store, a great one here in town where I live, and I was giving them reagents. I had reagents, and then it was, can you give it to my friend? And it slowly evolved and evolved.
So that's where all this started. This was almost kind of an accident. You bought a tester. You didn't like how expensive the reagents were, and because of your background, what is your job title? What do you do?
They changed these job titles. They just recently. I think I was a research scientist. Now I'm a senior advisor. But basically, aside from official titles, I do nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. NMR is the acronym.
Right, okay.
It's a niche of chemistry. A lot of structural analysis, chemical determinant. I mean, it literally falls into exactly what would be required. Now, I unfortunately, this was not a situation where I needed an NMR. This was relatively simple. This is aqueous chemistry. This is indicator chemistry. A lot of it's well known.
But basically, this is your job. This is your background.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, this was not a huge challenge. I don't want to oversimplify the process, but in terms of figuring out the ingredients, didn't even need to go to the extent of high tech by any means.
Okay, and so you started with your you just wanted to do it for yourself, and this kind of started to get a bit more popular, and because it got popular because it's so much cheaper. So, and I have an automated tester, but I don't use your reagents. I don't even know if it's compatible actually, but the reagents for mine are actually quite cheap. But so I don't know how much yours are, and how much cheaper are they than sort of the branded one?
It depends on which product, but I would say ballpark across the spectrum of the products we offer, it's at 50% or more cheaper.
Half price, basically. Okay. And so there are a few things that are obvious questions. So if something's that much cheaper, it's got to be worse, right? You get what you pay for. So I know the answer to that. But so what is there less resolution? Have you cut corners? What's the score with that?
I'm not going to claim that they're more accurate or better. I will claim that they are identical in accuracy. I mean, the way that these work from a chemistry standpoint and from a calibration standpoint, all of the accuracy is associated with the calibration. So it's, you know, it's equivalent. That's the correct term.
It's the same, yeah. And you're confident enough to say you're not losing resolution by going with you.
Absolutely not. Some people have even claimed they've done side-by-side tests. I've done my own. I would go as far as saying, based on the data that I have, it's equivalent. Some have reported that it's more stable. I'm not going to go that far and claim that myself because I don't have that data.
What does more stable mean? As in, it will last longer, or
variations from a longevity standpoint? Yeah, stability. That's a common question I get. One of the original manufacturers commonly claims that it's, I think within a year, not to use them. We don't put any expirations on these. I'm not going to give a year amount in terms of when they expire, and for that reason, I refuse to put an expiration on it. I have some batches right now that are almost 3 years old, and I literally have zero signs of any issues whatsoever. I have taken no care in storage with them. We're talking, I dump in test batches to them, mix them with this, that, and the other. That's not the way that this chemistry works.
Okay, so the temperature doesn't matter. Does it matter if they're in direct sunlight?
Yeah. I mean, you're touching on fundamental chemistry things. Absolutely. Sunlight, oxygen exposure, and temperature are some of the main variables associated with any chemical degradation. Now, chemical degradation can be extremely slow. Am I claiming that these don't degrade at some minuscule level? I won't claim that. But nothing to the point where they're going to affect a test in any way, shape, or form. Do I recommend having these out in the sun in the summer and like storing them outside? No. I would. Okay. The biggest thing I have noticed from a stability standpoint is my local fish store. They left the cap off one time, so they have a big vat that people just come in and bulk fill up their bottles and they go home. And there's a pressure relief cap, and they left that cap off for an extended period of time, weeks, and evaporation occurs. So evaporation is and that makes sense, right? Concentrations are changing, pHs are allowed to change. So if I've seen one thing that affects the stability, it's evaporation.
Okay.
But that's
put a lid on it and you were okay.
I mean, exactly.
Okay, fair enough. So that's it. I used an old Hannah alkalinity reagent not long ago, and it was expired, and I tested it against a brand new one, and the resolution, it was about half a DKH out. Yeah. So I mean, obviously all reagents are different, but I always just assumed based on that all reagents kind of, if they're exposed to air, there's a problem with them. But
yeah, no. So with the Hannahs, and I'm not going to claim. Where my mind goes with the reason for that is probably CO2 exposure, changing the pH. The alkalinity is largely based on a pH titration.
Yeah. Okay.
And the biggest variable with the Hannah reagent is that you have a small volume. And so your surface area to volume ratio is pretty large compared to a large bolus of a solution. And so there's a lot more contact with the atmosphere. I mean, these are, I can only guess 10, 20 mils at most on those little bottles. I have them too. And
25, I think it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a lot.
I throw them out exactly. But it's pH drift is likely. I'm not going to go ahead and speak for them, but I'll let them speak for themselves. But that's most likely the reason for their variations over time.
And that's not a factor on the ones you make. And so let's talk a bit more about price then, because it's roughly half price, but you've got all sorts of, because at the moment you're based in the States.
Yeah.
So there's shipping, there's taxes. How does that work out?
Yeah. So the U.S. market, and the quote about the approximate 50% off, that's for a U.S. cost. It's actually probably a lot cheaper for the international market, because my goal, I didn't realize, but I mean, I was getting, after a while, I mean, my main goal first, it's me and now some family members, my in-laws are helping. We can get to it later. I finally have a partner with a large distributor, but there's only so much I can do, and I have a main job. I've got a family. We've got young kids, a brand new newborn this year. I mean, it was quite taxing on us. So we intentionally kind of wanted to grow slowly, but in short, the pricing, I was getting all kinds of emails from the international market. I mean, I'm talking, I had no idea that these were all over the globe. And I didn't realize they were paying even crazier prices, in my opinion, than the U.S. market. The U.S. market had the cheapest, which I thought was ridiculous. And then I'm getting these sob stories from Europe and Australia, and I didn't want to forget them, but my motivation was, I can only do so much at once. Going international is a different step. And the shipping cost, obviously, is crazy, right? Crazy to ship large boxes with virtually 95+% water, and the weights. And it was to the point where I was like, I don't know if it's really worth it, you guys. Are you sure you want to buy it? And they said, it's still cheaper. And that made me think, was when people started paying 2 times the amount of the product just in shipping, and told me that it was still cheaper for them to do that. And so I got to thinking, and it all boiled down. It was quite simple. Get rid of the water. So how do I get rid of the water? And that wasn't easy, but I ended up formulating what I call a just add water kit. And it's literally what it sounds like. You dump a bottle into a container, and you add some water, a specified amount, shake it up, and it's ready to go.
So is it your solution is a powdered or a liquid?
It's a mixture.
Okay.
So for each reagent, it's a little bit different, but it's 2 bottles for A, 3 for B, and 2 for C in general.
Okay. So, and you just mix those in with your, and it's distilled water, right?
I recommend distilled water, and that does RODI work? Yes, I've tested it. The problem is I can't guarantee everybody's RODI, right? I don't know the last time you changed your filters, your resin. And it's, I don't want to say everybody, go ahead and use RODI. If that's all you have, it's going to work as long as it's high quality. I mean, to be honest, I've tested it with city waters. It works. The caveat is these concentrates last for a few years. So you've got a bulk of reagent now. So there's other considerations, microbial impacts, right? I don't want growths to happen. I've taken care of that by modifying the recipe with special preservatives, non-toxic, all safe stuff. But, there's a lot of considerations going into, okay, somebody's going to hold this for potentially 2 to 3 years.
So that's another thing, actually, is when it comes to mixing chemicals, it always sounds quite intimidating, and particularly, am I going to breathe it in? Is it going to, knock me out and I'll end up in hospital? What's the story with that? Presumably it's safe.
I'm all about safety, and I err on the side of safety. And with each kit will come an instruction guide, and the first page is all about safety. Please wear goggles. Please wear some gloves. I'm a professional chemist. I can't assume that people are used to doing that stuff, and so I would rather have them be ultra safe. These chemicals, as long as you're not drinking them, you're going to be okay.
You're good.
Even the reagents. I mean, I've gotten them. I could dip my hand in. It's not going to like melt your skin or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Is it possible for some skin irritation? I can't speak for every last person in the population, so I think it's safe to say, yeah, err on the side of caution. But in this industry in particular, people are dealing with bases, acids, additives, all kinds of various chemicals. Again, nothing crazy.
No, and to be fair, that even mixing up alkalinity solutions, it probably is. You probably should have glasses, goggles, and gloves, and all these sorts of things. But okay, fair enough. So there's no issues with that. And I spoke to a guy this week. I bought a car off a guy who's just bought a large batch of yours, and he bought distilled water because in the UK, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, but we don't really talk about distilled water. The distilled water we generate in UK goes into vodka and gin, so it's not readily available. But I did look up before, and you can get it quite cheaply, sort of £10 for a 5 litre bottle. Sorry, and probably you could get it a bit cheaper than that. So even with that, it probably still works out cheaper.
Based on the numbers that I've heard from the UK market, if they were to purchase the original reagents, I mean, I think it's 2 to 3 times as much, 3 times as much even. So these kits, I mean, I will not ship at the time the pre-made reagents, the water weight.
Yep.
I just it's just me with some help from some family, and it starts to become a lot to handle if we had to replace a damaged box, for example, where we had a leak. It costs $80, for example. So, we're starting to actually look into other shipping companies, cheaper options. But I think where my mind is going right now with that is we just started working with CoralView. Some people may not like that, going, "Oh, you're selling out." But honestly, I have a really good relationship with them. And I very clearly communicated my brand mission. They liked it. And I basically said, look, we need help. We have gotten to the point now where we can't realistically distribute wholesale to all the fish stores. It would deplete our supply. I mean, every time we did a wholesale order, not only are we making less, but our supply is gone. And so we had to keep working and working and working. So hopefully, I don't know their plans from an international shipping standpoint. I need to talk with them, but it's not unfathomable to think that they would be able to distribute the ready-made reagents for people who are not ready to take the big leap and buy a 5-liter handle of reagent, because it's a steep price relatively, but right now, I mean, it's the only way that we're going to be able to get reagents all over the world.
And this is so I'm not sure if CoralView are in the UK. I've seen I've certainly heard of CoralView. I know who they are, but I don't know how much they are involved over in the UK. I don't think they're over here. I might be wrong, but so because ideally, I guess because you're doing this at home in your kitchen on your own, more or less. Is that kind of more or less where it is?
Similar, yes. We have actually dedicated a portion of our entire house, not a small part, but I mean, it's gotten to the point, and that's why, I mean, we had to reach out, and CoralView stepped up. I mean, they've got a warehouse. So my in-laws, they have dedicated a portion of their house. I mean, they are taking care of, at this point right now, almost all regular shipments in the U.S. are from my wife's parents. They're mixing batches, they're bottling, they're shipping. I am focusing right now on the concentrates, which I think a lot of people, I don't know, maybe everybody knows, maybe there's a lot of people that don't know, but I mean, I have to make I weigh out, milligram by milligram, every single kit as that comes in, and it takes a lot of time. So we needed the help, and that's where CoralView has stepped in. So I am interested. I'm going to follow up and see what their European footprint looks like, because that's kind of my mission this year. This previous year, our first year, I feel like we had to sort through all kinds of things. A brand new business, packaging issues, recipe refinement. But I feel like we're pretty close to having that all set here in the U.S. And now my main goal now is to really focus on the international markets and focusing on each country and market independently, because I think that they're each a little bit unique. Australia, I spent a lot of time with Australia already. They're in good shape. I mean, they're off and going. I mean, there's 5 stores that are bottling themselves, labeling themselves, and
interesting. So that's they're actually doing the mixing for the hobbyist, effectively.
So okay. I send them a huge concentrate, right, and I give it to them at a dramatically discounted rate because I don't have to spend the time to mix, bottle, label, package, ship. And so, I charge them for my time and the chemicals, but they're doing all the work. And so it's a win-win-win. They're getting good revenues. They are then passing that on to the customer who is still getting it at half price in their market. And they're making it worth my while. I mean, for me, it's like a balancing game. It's like, what's my time worth? I've got a family that I'm not getting to spend time with. My wife is having to take on a lot of the burden of that. And so there's, I want to continue to go lower and lower in pricing. And so those are the things that we think about. How can we go lower? A lot of it's right now shipping and packaging.
It's crazy to talk about it that way around, because normally it's the other way around. Almost, how much can I get away with? Perhaps a bit of a clumsy way of putting it. But why are you different with that?
We make a comfortable living, and
okay.
we're by no means are we rich, but we don't need to be greedy. And I would say early on we branded ourselves as a hobbyist company. I started off as a hobbyist. I need to still, obviously, I can't do it for free.
No, of course, yeah.
I can't give it away. But I wanted to focus on a couple areas. One was customer service. Being a small company, I figured our response time should be darn near immediate. And I'd like to think that anybody listening who has dealt with us would attest to that. Like, I really take pride in, I want immediate response. Really? I know how I am as a customer, and there's nothing, right? I mean, look at the world. There's nothing more annoying than you have an issue or a question, and you sit there and you wait and you hope that you don't get some automated email. And so I take pride in prompt responses. I would actually caution, I mean, where I'm going next, I'll be honest. I'm taking this exact same model and I'm looking at other products in the industry that I would say are significantly overpriced to the point where I think it's robbery. Honestly, I can't come up with a better word. I don't mind a markup. I get it. And I'm not saying that bigger companies don't have larger overheads, et cetera, but some of these additives and some of these mixes, they are dirt cheap. The commodities that's not the cost. And I don't have a problem with people marking up for advertising, for administrative costs, but the percentages that they're marking up, I mean, I look at it as you've put a target on your head, not your head, but
I know what you mean.
On your product, and I look at it and I say, oh my gosh, not hard to figure out. Is
Okay.
it worth my while?
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway,
In terms of pricing, like you say, most people, everyone knows that you want aquarium companies to make a profit and all this sort of stuff.
yeah, they
You
have
don't want to be ripped off. But I feel like with this sort of thing, I have no idea. I buy my reagents for the refactory device I have. They're actually quite cheap.
Yeah.
I suspect I could find out the recipe and make it myself, but
Yep.
it's so cheap there's not an issue.
You
But if
absolutely can.
okay, but if it's with prices, I've got no idea if whatever they're using costs is very expensive. It's science, so how do I know? So
And they know that.
your average customer has no idea. Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm going.
And they know that. And
yeah.
That's the part that I have a problem with. I'm actually surprised. I'm sure I'm not the only chemist that's in the hobby. There's no way I am.
No.
And so I think there's a lot of people that generally are aware and just unfortunately have to put up with it, because there is a large barrier of activation to doing something about it, right? And I'm finding that out the hard way. I mean, it's, every day I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? But as I've gone now, I've learned a lot. I have some help, and I get entertaining questions from other people saying, hey, can you look at this product? This seems like a lot to spend on just this. And a lot of times they're absolutely right.
There's a lot of people in the chat talking about Hannah checkers, and I use Hannah checkers for nitrate and phosphate. I absolutely love them.
Yeah.
But the reagents, I think they're one of them is twice the price of the other. They're about £1 per test, so they are quite expensive. So I mean, you've got your tester that does calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity. Are you planning on expanding to others? It sounds like you know how to do it.
D&E is in the near future.
D&E. Oh,
ABC, D&E.
Oh, sorry, I see. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So no, good, fair question. Good question. Yeah, it's a natural evolution. Everybody wants nitrates and phosphates, obviously, myself included. So what I can't divulge too much, but what I can say is it is in the process. It will happen. And yeah, I mean, if you're a company out there charging too much for those tests, either lower your price, because honestly, those are somewhat simpler, and yeah.
So, and going back to the sort of the ABC stuff, then. So I'd seen on your stream with Jim, you talked about how this is there something that the manufacturers can do to say, you know what, we don't like that this guy's coming in selling a product. We've set out we've done all this research to create a product. We need to make X profit to make this work. Part of that is that we need to sell reagents at Y markup. And this isn't this is playing devil's advocate for the manufacturers. So they can't come in and just say, do you know what, we don't want this guy to come in and sell reagents for us. These are our products, so we're going to put in a code or do something to stop you. Can that happen?
I mean, I mentioned it on Jim's stream. I mean, I guess technically they could do something like that. I would like to think that would really upset the customer. I know I would be upset if I had a cheaper option. That's a loaded question. One, if they're doing it based on a number code that you have to purchase, that's one thing. If they're doing it as a chemical code, I don't think they're going to go that route. I think they've probably already learned by now that won't last very long.
Because you'd work it out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're going to put all this R&D time into figuring out a new chemical composition that just gets detangled in a short amount of time. That seems like a no-win situation. But I think, in my opinion, I think the biggest reason why they wouldn't do that, and I could be wrong, is I think it's going to disrupt. It's not going to leave a good taste in their customer's mouth. You know, it wouldn't in mine. I'm a customer. I've got 4 of these systems, and you know, I would be upset. I would switch vendors. I literally would just switch vendors.
And actually, so I don't know how this is the market's going to work for that. But one of the things when I was looking at automatic testers, the price of reagents, and the fact that you have to use some machines make you test all 3. You can't just say I only want to test 1, for example.
Yes.
So I didn't like that. So that put me off. So if suddenly there's a cheaper option available, that makes me I'm more inclined to buy it.
Yep.
But with the what was I going to say? So and this because I think that they would be entitled to be a bit cheesed off if they developed this process themselves. But from what I understand, this isn't an aquarium manufacturer that's worked out how to test this process and created this process. This is just a standard science process of testing.
I mean,
things. Is that right? Is that fair?
That's a fair way of stating it. I mean, definitely for alkalinity. I mean, we're talking as standard as it gets. A lot of how I figured this out was literally Google searching and searching research articles, doing a little bit of investigation, figuring out the exact recipes and individual components. That took some more time, and I would say it required my professional experience. But yeah, I mean, hence the reason they don't have a patent on it, right? I mean, it's unpatentable. It's unpatentable. They don't own these chemicals. They're not the only ones using this. It's been disclosed. So yeah, I mean, they have a special little recipe that I've figured out. I'm doing my best at a minimum to at least keep them from raising the prices, and I'm doing what I can to offer them at the lowest that I can, and hopefully continuing to, if anything, decrease them. I mean, I know we have inflation all over the world. Our costs, our costs have gone up, right? Bottle costs, caps, label, everything has gone up. But I'm going to stand firm, and if anything, I will decrease prices. I don't see myself ever increasing them.
Because over the last 6 months to a year, everything has gone. In fact, probably over the last 2 years, when you talk about shipping containers, that sort of stuff, everything has gone crazy. So there must come a point when you can't absorb that anymore, and you need to start pushing prices up. Or is that not right?
Well, I mean, of course, if you take inflation to the limit and say, okay, well, the price has now doubled for this, that, and the other. Yeah, obviously, I would have to conform, but given the current inflation rates and pricing increases, we're still able to absorb enough. Again, it all comes down to, look, we're not trying to be greedy. We have to make it worth our time. But I think ultimately how we branded ourselves is we're here for the hobbyist, and we want to provide, the exact same quality, if not better. We want to provide significant savings. That my goal is 50% or larger from what they're normally used to paying. And then customer service, I want that to be above and beyond anything that they've ever experienced. And I would say that should be the case with any small company.
And so I'm actually surprised at that. I would have thought, given that this is something you effectively do in your spare time, or I think it's probably grown beyond that. Yeah, I would have expected, if I send you an email, I wouldn't expect to hear back, well, maybe within a week, but I wouldn't expect straight away. So it's interesting that you put that as such a priority.
Unless I'm asleep, and I can promise you, I get messages in the middle of the night that sometimes I wake up and respond to, but I would say my average response time is probably within an hour.
Right. Okay.
And that's
pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I take pride in that, and it's something that I want our company to be branded on. Of, we started it for the hobbyists. We are hobbyists, and that's important to me. And I think that goes a long way. I know my experience with any other company, even outside of this industry, I have seen a decline over the last several decades of customer service, and it annoys me. And I actually now have a direct way of influencing how my customer service is. So I really take pride in doing what I can to go above and beyond.
Yeah, it's so good. There's just nothing worse than bad customer
Exactly.
service. It's just so infuriating.
Exactly.
But there's a couple of questions that have come in, and this is the first one: is ask Jonas if there's a calibration solution for the reagents, presumably, so you test it yourself.
Yeah, that's a great question. So people log on and like, oh my gosh. We mentioned, right, that the international market now, they're not getting a 1 gallon kit. I've changed that. They're getting 5 liters, which will help compensate for some of the additional charges from import taxes that they'll have to pay and shipping. But it's my attempt to try to normalize it. So it also helps them with just the measuring aspect. With that being said, a customer logging on saying, well, wait a second, all your products come with calibration solutions, but this gigantic kit that's going to last me 2-3 years doesn't. So calibration solution, what is it? It's salt water. Okay. It's literally salt water. All right. So it fundamentally is going against everything about my concentrate kit. Now, with that being said, a lot of people don't realize it is so easy to calibrate your system yourself. Almost every hobbyist I talk to, they know what their parameters are on their tank because they have manual kits. They use a Hanna. They use a Salifert, Red Sea, whatever their test kit preference is. I would say anybody that has these automated testing systems, it is a small fraction of people who don't have a manual test as a backup to at least check their system. With that being said, as soon as you know your numbers, and this is the way that I calibrate, I don't even use my calibration solutions. I mean, I do from a testing standpoint before I release them, but the way that I calibrate reagents is I manually test my tank. I now know my numbers, alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium, and I use my tank water as my calibration solution. And that way, it is spot on right then and there. I'm not relying on a secondary water source that was tested who knows when. Calcium and magnesium are usually very easy to hit.
Doesn't that mean you're relying on the first test kit being accurate?
I use a variety of test kits. So when I make so when I make my calibration solutions, I'm actually using 4 or 5 different vendors and averaging them and throwing out outliers, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
they're all almost always within very close number to each other. And I always use new ones. For example, you mentioned the Hanna stuff, and even Salifert, after a few weeks, I get a new one for testing purposes.
Yeah.
But bottom line is, if you trust your test kits, because a lot of times any issues that I've ever had with reagents, people come back to me and they're like, oh, well, my numbers are this. I used this to test it. Well, if that's the number you trust, well, then use that as your calibration. These reagents, as well as the original manufacturer's reagents, will be as accurate as the calibration solution is.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, makes sense.
All of the error comes down to calibration solution. So people have long explanation, but people have asked me lots of times, and I'm happy to throw it in. If you send me a message and you're like, can you throw in a few calibration solutions? I don't have any test kits. I'll go get some. I throw in a few. But to provide 2.5 or 3 years worth of calibration solutions, it's literally almost the same volume as the concentrate kit itself. And so I fundamentally have it's going the opposite direction of
and there's no real benefit. You might feel as a hobbyist like you're getting a benefit, but you're not.
No. Okay. In the end, calibration solution is salt water that has been characterized well.
Interesting. Okay. And in terms of accuracy for these machines and the test kits, it sounds like you're quite confident they're all pretty accurate. They don't need to be spot on. It doesn't really matter if they're not bang on, but
Yeah,
can you tell just how accurate they are?
I can't quote a number, but the original manufacturer quotes a number, and I would agree that their instruments are providing plus and minus values within the range that they specify. Again, these are instrument issues, not reagent issues. The reagents, it's not like these reagents are going to be more or less accurate. It's whatever you calibrate to. And it's the same thing with their reagents. So I would even go as far as saying as any inaccuracies that they have with their reagents are all, and I read the blogs, I don't participate in them. Yeah. Almost all of the situations that I've read where their reagents are having issues, it's almost always, not always, but almost always calibration solution issues.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so that's kind of that's how it works and all that sort of stuff. So, and you've said that you're starting to. I think you're looking. What you really want to do is get these in shops across the world. Is that right?
I mean, I want to get these to whoever wants them, so that they stop emailing me at weird times of the day. I mean, I don't even know what day it was. I'm losing track. It was Thursday or Friday, early in the morning, middle of the night. South Africa. Brazil, I think I'm pronouncing this right. Maldives. I had to look it up. Some little island, and I mean, we're
honeymoon
talking
destination.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what these people are doing with automated testing systems all over the world, but they have them and they want them, and they're relentless, and they are feeling the pain of either one of two things: not being able to get the reagents, or paying such ridiculous prices that they feel. I have compassion for them, because I feel duped having bought the system and I didn't do my own research, which I should have. It's my own fault of knowing what the reagent costs were going to be long term.
So, and actually, in terms of getting them in stock, the person I spoke to the other day said he'd had problems with, and this might change. Distributors change from time to time, and I think there's one manufacturer that's changed their distributor recently, so maybe this is going to change, improve. I don't know, but they had problems getting hold of the reagents. So it wasn't just, hey, can I save a bit of money? It was actually number one, I can't get the one I want as well. So availability. So from my point of view, I would think, well, this guy has set up in, this isn't an established manufacturer with 100 employees. Surely that's going to be less reliable than the bigger companies.
So how am I going to do that?
Yeah.
So how I've been doing that. So Australia is a great example. Kudos to them. They reached out early on, and when they communicated to me the prices they were paying, it was insane. Now, granted, the shipping costs are a lot to go to Australia, significantly more than a lot of other places in the world. But look at Australia. I mean, who has coral, right? I mean, if somebody has coral, it's Australia. And it's a cool, the automated testing systems are awesome. I love it. But the prices they were paying, I couldn't believe it. So I felt inclined, and I still feel really partial to them in particular because of their price markup, to help even get the prices down further. But what they've done now, I've got 4 or 5 different stores who will buy these concentrate kits, but at much larger scale. And so I give them a significant discount, and they bottle, and I told you, they bottle, they label, they take the time that's associated with me in manufacturing and packaging, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's a way to share the work, but it's all mutually beneficial, all the way down to the customer, who is now getting a half price option.
Because there must be, I don't know who sells the most automated testers in the UK, but it's not a big market here. There aren't thousands of shops, so there must be half a dozen shops that sell the most things. And so maybe that's the routine, is to get a relationship with the shops directly. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. I've just started talking with some people there in the UK.
Okay. Can you say who?
I can't.
No.
out of respect for their privacy.
Sure.
but I need to probably reach back out. But bottom line is, it has to be worth it for them. You know, they're going to be doing a lot of the work. You know, it's me with a recipe, and then my time of weighing out and shipping, which is not insignificant, but you know, it comes down to how much is my time worth, and can I make it worth their while? So I would say we're in initial discussions, but going with the same model that Australia has done, any single fish store is capable of doing what Australia has done. Any single fish store. And it can be as simple as mixing it up in a large vat that people then come and spigot with that's what we do here in Indianapolis.
Okay.
In Indiana. I mean, they literally come into the store, fill up their bottles, check out, and there's no bottling associated with it. And so you don't have all of those costs, no labeling costs, no shipping costs. And so you're literally providing it in a store as a bulk option for customers to come in and fill up their bottles and leave. Yeah.
And I guess even if that's the sort of thing that if that people will travel to go to. So it could be I've got a shop in my mind that's Reef Keeper Windsor, Moss End, which is near me, and it's a reasonably big shop for the UK, and it's it's central-ish for the South anyway. And I can imagine them doing it. It's the sort of place where, but you'd think, do you know what, I'm going to go there because I know they sell ABC reagents.
Yes, I mean, that's what I've told my local fish store here is, I tell him now, I said, lower these prices to the point where, you know, use it as a way to get people to your store. And that's my way of saying thank you to him, because he provided me with his customer base in the early days to do a lot of testing. They were getting free reagents and just saying, hey, you know, giving me feedback. Yeah, this one's a little off. Here's a little issue, blah, blah, blah. And so now, you know, for him, it is, right? People come in, they're like, I need to go fill up on my reagents. And while I'm here, I might buy a couple coral as well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. So we talked a little bit about expanding. So D&E. So what does D&E mean?
Well, D&E means exactly what it is, right? So we've got the three, but I think the glaring hole is still nitrate and phosphate for all of us hobbyists. I want those 5 value. I don't really care about magnesium personally, but alkalinity, calcium, nitrate, and phosphate are my main 4.
Absolutely.
So I want to do that and basically make an alternative for nitrate and phosphates for everybody. But a natural extension of that is then the instrument. I don't like the costs that all these instruments are in excess of $1,000 or more, $1,500. And most of them are not standalone systems. You have to buy this thing and have this controller. So I have a goal, and I have a few individuals that I've talked to. It's in the early steps, but my main goal, and I don't know if it's going to happen because ultimately we have to do some market analysis, pricing, blah, 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 build a prototype. My main goal would be to build an instrument that tests all 5 of those, has cheap reagents for all 5, and the price target of the instrument, it's a standalone of $700, and you don't have to buy any other extra doohickeys to connect to it. So it's, you know, it's really going in line with the reagent. Is I would rather make a smaller margin on an instrument and have it completely be, you know, high quality. My end goal would be, it is going to be the instrument. Why would you want another one? And have it be cost effective.
Yeah. The closest thing to that is the Mastertronic. You know, as far as I can. But what I really like the idea of. Ideally, all I really care about is alkalinity, nitrate, and phosphate. Calcium would be great too. Magnesium, yeah, why not? I suppose. Yeah,
right.
But I think the Mastertronic can do all of those.
It does. It does.
But that's about double the price of how much is that in the States? Do you know?
I want to say it's at least, I've got one and I haven't taken it out of the box yet.
Okay.
I think it's like 13 or 14.
Okay.
The issue that I have with that system is the reagents are from a variety of vendors. So now you have a supply chain issue. Not only a supply chain issue, but you're still dealing with the same expensive reagent costs over time. So it's a double whammy in my mind. It's like, okay, great, cool. We have a system that tests all the things that we want. Oh, by the way, it's super expensive. And oh, by the way, you have to buy reagents from this store, and this store. And they're all overpriced. So that's
the other thing I think with those, and I'm sure this isn't right, but just from a non-scientist point of view, I think I don't want to have 5 different manufacturers selling me the reagents. And is there variance? And so
I want to deal with one person, right?
Yeah.
Sure. One company, one entity to say, I'm having an issue. Because if you, and I can only speculate, again, I haven't taken it out of the box, but if I have an issue with a reagent, who am I going to, are they going to take care of me? The instrument company? My guess is no. They're going to say, oh, well, we defer that to so-and-so.
Yeah.
And so to me, I think it should be a centralized. I think the instrument manufacturer should be doing the reagent managing, manufacturing, or at least at a bare minimum, overseeing the manufacturing and doing all customer service associated with that.
I really like the idea of that. That just one shop. And by the way, it's not just me. Everybody in the chat saying, I'd buy that in a heartbeat. I'd buy that instantly. Yes, please. Take my money, basically.
No, but I mean, me too. I mean, that's where the idea kind of, I mean, I was pitched the idea early on. They're like, well, why not just make an instrument? And can you do nitrate and phosphate? And so that, I had other priorities back then when ABC first started, but we're now in a place where I can start to think about those things, and those are the what's next. Yeah.
So, and how would that work? Would it be like a color meter, like a HANA checker? Or,
yeah. Okay. So, I mean, how it would work would be, all of these tests are already known, right? And again, there's no IP associated with this. Correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I am, but I don't think I am. I don't think any of these companies have some patent on these reagent tests. These are standard analytical tests used in a lot of other industries that have been pulled over into our hobby. So it's not like they've invented something. They're taking something that has been widely used. The term I've heard a lot is reef tax, and I think that's I think that's exactly what it is. But I mean, it's not a little. That's the problem. A little is okay. A lot, that's where I have an issue. Is when we're talking, crazy amount extra than what it should be just because of our hobby.
So, and how realistic is it, or how far off are you? Is this start of the next quarter, or what's the timescales?
It's already started.
Okay.
It's started. I mean, yeah. Do I have an instrument that I'm prototyping? No. Not there yet. On the other hand, I don't think that's the hard part. I think it's really no. I think this is outside of my expertise, but I think it's really the software platform. How do you integrate stuff like that? And that's why I say that's the hard part, is because that's not my expertise. The chemicals and all that stuff, the colorimetry, that's pretty basic stuff. It really is. So then it comes down to, engineering, what type of price points, what type of volumes do you have to get certain price points? So then it comes, it starts to become a business question.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Okay, so there are lots of complexities, but in terms of you could do the process. You've got the process mapped out in your head of how you would measure each of these. Well, there's only two extra ones that you're not currently doing.
Once I nail down nitrate and phosphates from a chemical standpoint, I would say we're kind of off to the races. And honestly, we could probably be off to the races from an instrument standpoint already, and just kind of have a placeholder for the D and the E.
Yeah. Okay.
But there's a lot, there's a lot. That's a lot of conversations. This is a collab. This is going to have to be a collaboration between me and a variety of other people. So it's not quite as simple as just ABC Reagents is going to do this.
Gotcha. Because I think I'm right in saying, so when these automatic testers first came on the market, there was a trade show or an aquarium show in America somewhere, maybe 10 years ago, maybe not quite that long ago, where a guy had developed this testing machine. And I think actually he ended up selling that to Neptune, to GHL. I can't remember. So is that the sort of thing that you could do? You develop something and then you work with a company?
I would learn from that mistake. I don't think that that's the right. I don't think that that's the right.
You lose control and you give away everything, basically.
Well, I mean, I think I know this individual you're talking about. And if you anybody watching, go back and listen to stream 1 with Telegram, and not 2, maybe 2, but I'd be interested in knowing what his reflections are on it. But no, I that's the fun part. I don't want to let that part go. I would want to continue the collaboration and continue to improve. I think there's very few products that are developed and put on the market that can't be improved over time. And so I don't, I think it's an evolution.
Because there's a balance with most companies. The engineers in the background want to make it perfect, and the rest of the company just says, look, good enough. Let's just get on and sell it, shall we please? And then don't worry about it. So you're kind of the engineer side of that equation.
Oh, yeah, a little bit, but also being a hobbyist and then living true to my brand of if I do nothing more in this company than be the best customer service I can possibly be, that's something that's super important to me. So I want, there's nothing worse than a product that comes out that has issues, right? And so I think, I don't want my name attached to something that will go down in the aftermath of being, that was cool, but it had these issues. And so no, I mean, maybe eventually, sure, you sell it, but
you want to make it what you want it to be before you even think about at that stage. So
and I would co-develop, and it's going to be necessary. There's going to be a variety of expertise that are required. So it's going to be a collaborative process for sure, but I think with huge benefits for everybody. Again, right? Like, cheap reagents, cheap instrument, but it works great. That's the goal.
Absolutely. And so the one thing I talk about, and I would pay good money for something that does all 5 for sure, and does it reliably. And there's always going to be a degree of maintenance and calibration. And with those, I find that with my tester, I get out what I put in. So if I don't calibrate it for 6 months, it drifts by 1 DKH or whatever. So I guess that's inevitable because of pumps change and all these sorts of things. And but because the most of the calibration I do on mine is the pH probe. The pumps don't seem to make that much difference. So you wouldn't have a pH probe, right? You just have a few dosing pumps.
Yep.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to think about. There's a lot going on. Adding two more variables does make things more complex, I'm sure, from a variety of things, from a tubing, and you add the possibility of more clogs. I don't want to oversimplify it, but again, I mean, it's worth exploring. So to me, I'd really like to focus on that as my time permits.
So that's your, because you've already got your job and your family and this as well. So you're taking on a lot already. So are there areas you're going to focus on specifically, or is there like one thing that, or is it everything?
If I had to prioritize, because you're absolutely right. I mean, I take, so my main job I take extremely seriously. Not only do I love it, but I mean, I've got my colleagues there who are some of my best friends in life. I feel like I owe it to them to bring my 100% every single day. We're solving crazy problems. I mean, crazy problems for medicines that are highly impactful, and you know that needs me. ABC needs me, but not like my main job, right? Yeah. And so that obviously gets number one. Family obviously is equivalent, if not.
Yeah, if your wife's watching, you didn't just say family is number two. That was just, you know. It was...
Yeah, no, family is not number two.
Yeah,
and my wife has basically stepped up huge since this company started and allowed me to focus the time that I have on this. Yeah, no, I mean, without her, and she's actually hands-on with the business as well, but more so even with the kids.
Yeah.
Okay. Priorities though, after those, it's really international market. And that was the main reason why I reached out to you several weeks back. I had remembered you had reached out to me months and months ago. You and I had, we were both busy. My focus was not on the international market. It was like, yeah, guys, unfortunately it's so expensive. I can't even think about shipping there right now. But that has shifted now that I feel like we have the US market somewhat taken care of. We've got CoralView helping out. I don't know the extent. Again, I'm going to have to follow up with them to see their European footprint. But with the concentrates, that is absolutely where I would like to focus this year, is basically start to get it out to as many people in Europe, continue my work with Australia, and then there's straggler countries, small, and then Canada, I would say, is behind UK. But really? Surprisingly.
Yeah. We normally last. So.
Well, no. So how I prioritize it is who's paying the most.
Yeah.
Right? Who's paying the most for these reagents? Australia was getting reamed. I mean, I'm going to be honest. Ridiculous.
Okay.
Europe.
Why is that? Why specific Australia? Shipping, or?
I mean, shipping is more. Is more, but I can tell you that the percent. Well, actually, I don't know. I mean, I innovated the concentrate, and so maybe I overcame the shipping barrier. Yeah, it was about 50% more.
If I was being cynical, Australia is quite a wealthy country. They haven't had a recession for 20, 30 years, so. They've got deeper pockets, charge them more money.
I won't speak to it, but
no, that's my suggestion.
Yes. On the other hand, would I be surprised that companies look at that and make just marketing decisions like that? Not at all. So no, UK and Europe is really where I'd like to focus in the next several months, if not the entire year, of just getting the awareness out for people that, like, look, I know it sounds crazy to just add water, but that's how simple it truly is.
Okay. So, and you talked about Europe. So there's obviously, for the UK is what I'm most interested in, of course.
Yeah.
And but what other countries in Europe? It must be Germany, Portugal.
Not too much in Germany. France, Belgium, Netherlands.
Yeah.
Those are the main others, besides UK. And I mean, I say this ignorantly, but UK encompasses a variety of different countries.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say those are the main ones that I've gotten contacted from regularly: or Netherlands, Belgium, and France.
Good stuff. Okay, I didn't realize it was big in France, actually, and in Belgium. Holland, Netherlands is a big one, right?
I don't know about big, but I'm talking at least a few dozen emails.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Again, I treat every customer. I mean, if you're a single customer in this country and you are saying you're having a hard time getting reagents, see what I can do. I sent one to Kuwait.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's probably, besides Maldives or Maldives, that's probably the most odd one that I would have.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of certainly in Dubai, which isn't a million miles from there. There's a lot of high-end reef tanks sort of built into. I've seen Coralfish 12G's done a few videos recently where the people have had these £500,000 reef tanks. So I guess there's oil money even in Kuwait, I guess. But
all right.
But there you go. There are lots of people still asking about.
What kind of questions do we have?
So we've got the Hannah checkers keep coming up. So and this is about making the reagents. So is there a reason that no one else has come up with third-party reagents? And actually, let's extend this for Hannah checkers, but also for all testers. Why are you the first?
Yeah. Okay. So I mentioned it earlier. I specifically am interested in companies that I believe to be overpricing their product to the point where they are not being fair to the customers. Hannah, so that was one of the early ones that I was asked about. I did a little bit of work on it. It's nothing complex. And after doing a cost analysis, are they maybe asking a little too much? Sure. Mm-hmm. But it's nothing crazy, Yeah,
okay.
It's nothing crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time being motivated to share it I also have to realize, people have to realize I don't want to go pissing off every single company in the world. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure there's one company right now who doesn't care for me too much. And I don't have anything, and that's a whole other even topic. I actually would even go as far as saying we're somewhat helping them out. I know lots of people purchase these instruments as a result of now being able to have cheaper reagents. I do a lot of troubleshooting for them, customer service stuff from an instrument standpoint.
Yeah,
so, anyhow, I don't know that they even hate me, but I could imagine if I just start reproducing everybody else's reagents and their products that I might not be well liked by a variety, and that's not my goal. So again, I'm literally looking at the ones that I think are ridiculously overpriced, and those are my priorities.
Yeah, okay, right, and so, okay, fair enough. Because I think with the pissing off manufacturers thing, I think that's a genuine issue.
Yeah,
and that's something that I always care about balance. I'm not just wanting the cheapest possible thing for hobbyists. And if I thought this was unfair to manufacturers, I probably wouldn't have been interested in this in the first place. I wouldn't have reached out to you. Yeah. I don't think this is unfair. This doesn't feel like you're doing something that is untoward. This is not a patented process. This is just like I'm buying, supermarket brand Coca-Cola.
Yeah. So I mean, again, that's one whole other topic. I've read a variety of blogs. Ones that I don't participate in them, and I read everybody's points, and I'm interested in everybody's feelings on that. And I've seen a lot of sentiment. Some people are like, "Oh, he's cutting into their innovation funds and this, that, and the other." And it's a fair point to bring up, except I know what the margins are.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. And so if I'm able to sell at half price and have horrible shipping rates because I'm just a small company and everything is more expensive when you're doing small volumes, and I'm still able to make it worth my time, and my time is not invaluable, I would like people to be able to extrapolate to the margins that they're asking.
Yeah. And right? I guess the argument that from that side of things is, well, if you're developing these products in the first place, that's something that we as a hobby should be encouraging and we should be rewarding. But the balance is, well, yeah, that's fine, but don't take the piss out of us.
Yeah. So ironically, I work for a company who comes up with innovative medicines.
Okay.
One of a kinds, patented, and we have a limited amount of time to recoup our revenues. And I see firsthand what innovation is and what happens as soon as your patent runs out, and how other companies latch on to that.
Yeah.
So it's very ironic that I'm involved in this on the other side.
That's a really good point. That's just because own brand cola is a bad example because it's different. This is like paracetamol because it's the same thing. It's just, right. Okay.
Patent has expired. And now,
Yeah.
granted, it's different here. They don't have a patent on this.
Yeah,
so I would say that's the first point.
Yeah.
Is it was not, I don't want to say that they weren't innovative. The instrument is awesome. Innovative instrument. Reagents are with chemicals that are well-known. Tests, I figured it out. Not, obviously it wasn't something that they literally invented.
And also, if you need to make the money back to refund the time you've put in and the money you've put in to develop the product in the first place, if you can't make it through the reagents, you can increase the price of the device, and that will be balanced by
pretty pricey already.
Well, this is what I'm saying, but that will be that there are checks in place for competition, because if I want to buy an automatic tester, it's about 4 or 5 options. So if one of them is twice the price of the others, I'm not going to buy it. So that's kind of the market will balance all this out, I think, effectively.
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, the motivation here was, if these reagents would have been at my prices, I probably wouldn't have done it. I had to put a lot of money up front until you buy the ingredients at pretty large scales. It's actually not cost effective to do on your own.
Yeah. Okay.
And so once I dipped into it, obviously my scientific curiosity kicked in, and there was no turning back. And I was like, okay, well, I'm this close. I'm knee deep.
Plow on.
There's
another question that's got me thinking as well. So this is specifically about, we need a third party to replace Triton. Now, we're not encouraging anyone to replace Triton, but you're talking about manganese, £110 for a litre of manganese. And that makes, so I buy little 50 or 100 milliliter bottles of manganese.
Wait, slow down. £110 for a liter of a trace in water?
Yeah, correct.
That's what you're saying?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So I buy a 100 milliliter bottle, and I think it's £20.
That's insane. These are. I mean, I'm obviously just one person, and I can't do every last thing. But I mean, these are. I would love. Yeah, people, please send me emails of what you think are the most ridiculously overpriced things, because even if I can't generate them commercially, I'd like to at least do a little bit of research and see if I can, share a common way to do it yourself, because I have to. Let's be honest here. Manganese? What are we dosing these at? How many?
A couple of milliliters a day, not a lot.
Yeah. No. I'm talking like ppm levels. What are we talking?
Oh, I see. Oh, I couldn't tell you, to be honest.
But we're talking small amounts, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right.
I'm interested. I'm going to look at my most recent ICP test and tell you what.
Yes. I'd be.
It says 0, but I'm trying to find the recommended. Okay, it doesn't tell you, but it's going to be tiny anyway. Basically,
it's going to be tiny. So we're talking a speck dissolved in 1 liter, and we're going to charge you £110. That's literally what they're doing.
Yeah. But with something like manganese, I would have no idea. If I wanted to make my own alkalinity calcium supplements, I can do that. Baking soda, I'd have to Google it, but I could work it out, and I could do it very cheap. Manganese, I've got no idea. Do I need to dilute it? I'd have no idea how to do that. So are there other chemicals then that we use in the hobby that you could incorporate as, or is it just reagents?
I would urge anybody listening, just please things that you think are just absurd, and some of, you may think that something is absurd, and you'll send it to me, and I'll do a little bit of research real quick and say, you know what, it's overpriced, but not that bad. But I can tell you right now that 110 pounds for manganese trace edition is ridiculous.
Okay.
Who's the
it
company?
Feels ridiculous.
Who's
Fighting?
That's
You must
crazy.
have tried. Yeah.
And it's just manganese. There's nothing else in there.
Just manganese. Yeah.
Come on.
And if you buy it in the smaller bottles that I buy, it works out £200 for a litre.
Well, of course, because
I get through a bottle every 2 months, whatever. So.
My gosh.
All right. So, and I found I'll post this in a chat, but there's a contact us section on your website, and that's the best way to post these suggestions. So if there's something that is ridiculously overpriced, give you a shout, and
please do.
You'll put it on the list or whatever.
I'll respond as quickly as I can. And again, don't be offended if I'm like, oh, that one's not worth it, but I have to prioritize, and I'm literally looking at the things that are, and then scales, right? That's another thing. Somebody came to me yesterday with a product that was relatively simple, and the components were already kind of well established in terms of how to make it. I'd have to do a little bit of work, but then I got to thinking about it and brainstorming, and I was like, oh my gosh, the amount of space I would need to scale that up. So, I mean, there's a lot of things to think about, which then means, do I just organize a list of websites to say, hey, you want to do this, you go buy this, here's the amounts, weigh that out, you got your own DIY.
Okay. And is there kind of a limit to is ABC Reagents going to be your full-time job at one point in the future?
No,
is that never the intention?
I love
okay.
Are you kidding me? I don't know how much longer we can keep doing this. My main job I absolutely love, like to the point where it doesn't feel like work. That's how much I like it.
Okay, that's awesome.
And they pay me well, so that's ABC will never be able to compete with that. I'm already to the point now where it's more than I kind of ever thought it was going to be, and wanted it to be. On the other hand, I get a lot of satisfaction in different ways from customer interactions. I've met a ton of good people, and I like that. I like that part of it. I've met a lot of really cool people all over the world, and a lot of people that are extremely thankful for what we've done. And I think that they realize the sacrifices and being like, we appreciate that. Thanks for the time and energy that you're putting into it. So that makes me feel good, and it kind of gives me a little bit of extra energy. But realistically, from a overall job satisfaction and time that I spend on ABC, no, I don't feel like this is my life mission by any means.
No. Well, if you've got a job that you get up on Monday and you say, yes, I get to go to work, then.
To be honest, Alex, there have been days where I'm so excited about what I'm going to find out at work. Like, I can't wait. I mean, it's that kind of a job. No, I feel blessed.
1 in a million. Yeah, very much so. I'm very jealous. Okay, so how can people support? Because this is the things you're doing are just so fantastic. So how can people support you? Buy ABC Reagents, I guess.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, I would say reach out if you have questions, hesitations about buying the concentrate product that we have online. It's super easy. It comes with super simple instructions. It's not labeled yet. I haven't updated the website. It's not 3.8 liters. All international products now will be 5 liters. So you're actually getting, about a third more than the US market. And that was my attempt to bring the price back to what we're getting here. But I think fish stores, if you're a store and you're wanting to supply your customers with this product, reach out to me. I can explain it to you. I mean, Australia has been a great example of it can be done, and obviously a lot of them are doing it. they're making money. I'm basically putting at a significantly reduced cost for the product, such that you can still make more revenue than you would selling the original reagents, and then the customers get it at half price also. So it's mutually beneficial on all fronts. And yeah, I mean, I would say that's how people can help ABC. Spread the word. I refuse to spend a single dollar on advertising.
Mm-hmm.
I have intentionally wanted this to grow very slowly so that we could learn and not be overwhelmed with the demand over time. But I think we're at a point now where we have enough help to where I'm share with whoever at this point. I mean, we're good to go.
Well, there are a couple of I know there'll probably be people shops in the, watching and either now or afters, but there's definitely one in the chat, a shop near me or not a million miles from me called the Ocean Project, who says you've opened a can of worms potentially. But Sean is he this feels like it's right up his street, so you might get a message from him. I don't know. There was another question though. I meant to post this earlier. Tell us about your reef tank, Jonas. Do you have a tank at home?
I do. We have two. I have a 75-gallon that we first started with, and then I had a 120-gallon freshwater tank. So I had been a freshwater guy for my whole life.
Yeah. Okay.
Everything from cichlids to a 400-gallon aquarium in college, school of hand-sized piranhas. That was fun. And we saw, we go to the fish store and you see how beautiful the saltwater fish are, and decided to eventually make the switch. We're like, yeah, let's try the saltwater out. And talking with the saltwater guys, are like, well, do you want reef or just fish? And I mean, I was clueless I'm literally clueless. And then we started looking at the coral, and I fell in love. I was like, this is aliens on our planet. And I'm not an expert. I'm intermediate at best. I'm still learning a lot every day, but I fell in love with coral in particular. The fish are cool as well, but I fell in love with the coral. So we've got a 75-gallon that we've had for 3-4 years now, and then a 120-gallon. And I like to think that I did I learned a lot from my 75 and applied those lessons to my 120. And I want another one, and I'll hopefully apply. Yeah, no, I'm simple stuff though. It is a mixed reef. I mean, when I say simple stuff, we're elegance and zoas and GSPs, and there's some other coral. I have no idea what they are. I look at it and I do a little bit of research. They tell me the name, and I don't have them all memorized. Since doing the ABC, I've unfortunately not had as much time to spend on my own, which sucks, honestly. Yeah. I miss it. I miss being just a pure hobbyist.
Yeah. Okay. But again, you've got so many things to do that there's got to be a limit there. A question from Ocean Project. Important question: are the reagents safe to add the waste back into the reef tank?
No. So one of the other automated testing systems that does alkalinity is, and that's because the byproducts are totally safe to put back in. It's done strictly using the pH probe, and the byproducts can just go back in. That is not the case with these reagents. These reagents definitely have to go to a waste container.
Is that how it's set up with standard?
Yes. Yeah. So the original manufacturer of the main automated testing system, it all goes to waste.
Gotcha. Okay. So the one I use goes back. I put it back into the tank.
Yeah.
I've noticed no problems, and I think it must just be acid of some kind.
It's neutralized at that point, right?
Right. Okay. So there's literally no harm at all.
Not at all. Nope.
Okay.
Yep. No, and that I think that's a genius way of doing it, and you're putting all of your error onto your pH calibration, and the integrity of your pH probe, which introduces other issues, but I personally, I like that from a waste standpoint. I think that's, you know.
And
cool.
so if you were the machine that you're going to develop at some point, would that be one that you could return the reagents to the tank?
No, these are, I mean, anything colorimetric is going to be using organic dyes as well as heavy metal dyes.
Right. Okay.
Especially with the nitrate and the phosphate, they have the potential of introducing it can't go in. Absolutely not.
I've got a feeling that HANA test kits tell you what they are. Potassium disulfate for the phosphate reagent. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. I got no idea what that means, but
hey,
it sounds bad.
No, actually not at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Go ahead, Google that. See how much that costs, people, and that'll.
Okay. But so the thing with, although the HANA reagents are expensive, it's so convenient that they're in a, and it sounds like you're not convinced they're particularly expensive.
I use them as well. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they're so convenient. I would not, if you sold me a kilogram tub and I had to measure it out myself, I wouldn't be interested in that. I'd rather spend a bit more money, have it in a sachet, and know they've measured it out, presumably in a lab or whatever.
I'd rather have a scoop, though. I have to say, I'm not a fan of the packets.
No, you do get bits of stuff left in the bottom, don't you?
Right? And just how to I'm sure everybody has their own technique, but I've learned to bend the edge, cut, figure out how to pour it just perfectly. So not a fan of the packaging, but on the other hand, as a business, I understand that sometimes you have to do what's simple.
So with that then, if you've got a little tiny bit left in the bottom, and obviously it's going to depend how much you've got left over, but if you don't get all the reagent in, does that have a significant impact on the result?
I can't answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, because I wouldn't be able to say what % off it would be.
I guess that's quite an easy test to do yourself at home.
You just
deliberately pour less in and see what.
Do half. Take 2 packets. Do half on one. Do half on the other. See what happens.
Okay. All right, fine. Well, I think we've kind of got to. There's probably questions I've missed, and there was actually the one last thing that Ocean Project said was better to support shops and not sell direct to customers. So I don't know about not selling to customers, but I always like the idea of supporting local fish shops. They're kind of the cornerstone of the hobby, and without them, there is no hobby. So
I do too. I do too.
I like the Australian.
Yeah, I would say to anybody out there, if you're not a fish shop owner, if you are a fish shop owner, go ahead and reach out to me. I'm happy to explain the process that's been done in other countries successfully, and it will be worth your while. It's not hard to do. It does take a little bit of effort, but there's lots of options. And if you're just a general hobbyist, let your local fish store know. Say, hey, how come you don't have these reagents? So
I want ABC reagents. Can you get them?
Yeah. Can you get them?
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. And there's James says that he's got Sigma Aldrich has potassium disulfate for 25 kilograms for £30.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now you still need the liquid, correct? Or is it that's
just straight into the water sample from your tank?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah. Oh, for the phosphate one. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the nitrate one? Actually, I've got the nitrate one here too.
Yeah.
Does it say? I don't
See?
know if it was.
Hey, we're gonna have
malonic acid.
Malonic acid. Tell you what. That's it. I think everybody.
To be fair, that's worth a test for. I could do that. Yeah, okay, for the sake of £30, I could test.
I would recommend if you can maybe get a 5 gram. You don't need 25 kilograms.
That's a bit.
I mean, you might be able to supply the UK with that.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, all right. So I think that's everything that I had in my mind that I wanted to cover.
Cool.
Basically, what ABC reagents is, you can now get it in the UK.
Yes,
it's still a lot cheaper than the OEM stuff, and you're expanding onto other things. Most interestingly, at some point in the future, a tester that does nitrate, phosphate, alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium.
Yes.
So that's the headline. So was there anything else that you think that we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
I'll just mention, if you are interested in the concentrate kits, again, 3.8 liters is what's shown on the website. I haven't updated it yet, but if you're international, it will be a 5 liter. So that's making 5 liters times 2 of A, 5 liters of B, and 5 liters of C. I think that comes out to over 3 years worth of tests. Discount code UK, and that's good for all of Europe, is $65 US dollars off, and that I intend to have that permanently. I'm hoping to, in coming months, to even decrease prices, but I don't know when that'll be. But that's my attempt to at least help normalize the costs here, because the US market has a pretty good deal, and I really want UK and Europe to have the same deal. So yeah, there's a little bit of import tax, so hopefully that takes care of that, and cuts into shipping a little bit.
Yeah, you're getting what, 20-30% more, so it takes the edge off it a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of geography questions. So can you get it in Denmark?
Sure, why not?
Yep.
Yeah, I've gone to, I want to say I've gone to Sweden already.
Okay.
Denmark rings a bell. I'll have to look up to see if I've specifically added that. So anytime I add a country, the process that I do is I have to look into the shipping requirements and make sure that any of these reagent, like the chemical components, aren't. I haven't encountered one yet, but I want to do my homework and make sure that they don't explicitly call out any of these chemicals.
And the other one on geography was Canada. I think Canada is next on the list, right?
Yeah. No, Canada's getting close. So Coral View, and I have talked with them about Canada. That's a market that they're going to start distributing to fish stores. So I would imagine Coral View just got online this last week here. So I would imagine that ABC pre-made, ready-to-go reagents will be available in stores in Canada soon. But for the time being, I've been sending concentrate kits to Canada. And right now, because you guys are so close, I actually subsidize the shipping quite a bit to Canada. So it's not that much more than the US price. But again, it's only for the just add water concentrate kits. I don't send any pre-made reagents outside of the country.
Are there taxes between the States and Canada? What's the difficulty? As a Brit, it just thinks it's like, well, it's just north of the border, isn't it?
Yeah. Part of it, I imagine, has to do with I'm using the U.S. Postal Service, and part of the reason, again, it's me and my family who, we haven't spent a lot of time. If we were a larger company, we would find a shipping. Does DHL offer better rates? Maybe.
Yeah.
If we use DHL, then we have to find our own boxes. USPS provides free boxes to us for shipping, and it's super fast. I use priority shipping. So it's within the US, it's like 2 days usually. Canada, maybe 1 or 2 more days. Unfortunately, UK, I had 2 packages that left at the same time, and they're taking most people get it within a week, 2 weeks to the UK at most. There was 2 packages recently. Oh, I'm so frustrated. They took the long way. One of them went to London and then left London and went to Australia. And so,
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've had there's so every well, it seems that every company in the UK is striking at the moment. So we've got train strikes, we've got hospital strikes, and we've got postal strikes as well. There've been loads of postal strikes recently before Christmas. Everything's taking ages. So, and it's been going on for weeks and weeks now. So that might be part of it.
I wouldn't be surprised, but yeah, I've been frustrated because once it leaves the U.S. Postal Service's hands, they're contracting through some company there, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's, U.S. Postal Service tells me it's out of their control, and I'm like, well, you just took $80 of shipping.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I do business is I give you money for a service you said you were going to deliver.
You do the service, yeah.
Not send it to Australia.
Okay.
Anyhow.
And finally, PJ says he can add water, so he's figured that out. He's
PJ,
all right.
you can add water. There's no point in paying for water. If anybody remembers anything, that's it. Internationally, there's no point in paying for water, because that's it. That is why these reagents are so expensive in other countries, is water, shipping, and then, you know, my own personal opinion, I think a little bit of greed.
Okay. Good stuff. All right. Well, so any final things that you wanted to add? I think that was everything.
I just want to say thanks to you. I check out your posts quite often, and you've put together quite a collection. If I go back in the years, it's a nice condensed, distilled from a science word. If I want if I don't want to spend 5 hours learning about something, you break it down real nicely, and I
Indeed, that's good stuff. I try to. There's a reefer. BRS do some fantastic half-hour long science type stuff. I'm your 5-minute guy, so cool.
Yeah, but I only have 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, I love it because I can just plop it on real quick, and then I've got a nice tidbit of new wealth of information. Good summary. So appreciate what you do.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. Well, in which case, thank you all for joining, guys. Again, Jonas, thanks for your time. And I will see you all next week.
Cheers, guys. Take care. Cheers.
Right.